Welcome to But What Do I Know, where we are going to explore the spiritual journey, the path of initiation, and how it is we actually go about expanding our consciousness. Please like, follow, share, and feel free to comment. We talk about these things for a long time, Vedanta and non duality and all this. But as we are meditating, what we're doing is pulling the curtains aside by quieting the mind. But I think the problem is trying to quiet it prematurely. And that's the need for the ageless wisdom. Um, Premature growth is not going to be lasting growth. And this is the reason for the ageless wisdom. It's to ensure that the growth is lasting. We work through all of the emotional nature, psychological, emotional nature of the human being. So we understand it. And this is what this treatise on the seven rays is about. Right? We work through esoteric psychology so we understand the human nature. There's no questions once we're done with this. We look at our glamours. We become aware of all of our conditions and all of our emotions. We look into all of them because when it's time and you're trying to go higher in consciousness on the ladder, if there's a stone left unturned, you will be pulled back to deal with whatever that is. And then that's where you are. So you're not up higher. Now you're dealing with whatever stone that you didn't turn over. So the goal is to make the progress lasting. So we want to go deep into the psyche. We want to go deep into all of it so that there's no turning back. We want to understand the human condition physically, emotionally, and mentally. Most of us would have been dealing with the emotional nature and calming the waters of the astral plane, right? And dealing with the lower mental. This is Kama Manasic. This is where most of the people who would be studying the ageless wisdom would have been at in between initiations. Right? So we go in fully. We don't ignore it. If you ignore it, it has to be addressed at some point. Once the emotional nature is mainly settled, you can begin to look into the mind. So you pull that curtain aside, and now you're in the mind, the lower mind, more clearly. And then we can begin to see on mental levels. And 2 plus 2 equals 2. And then as we're doing this, we're looking up into the soul who sits a bit higher. And light from the soul starts to pour down into us. Fire of the mind pours in. Blockages get removed. Energy starts to flow. We can see that the mind is a tool. We can see that the emotions were necessary in order to become empathetic and compassionate and loving and understanding of the nature of duality. The physical body doesn't need to be gone back into to deal with. We just maintain. We have a regular, normalized life. We don't need to renounce necessarily anything. It's just there. That's not where our focus needs to be. Our focus needs to remain higher, controlling the mind so that we're pulling the curtains aside to see naked awareness. And our meditations allow us to be still as we've worked through this with the ageless wisdom, because now you know and you have an incredible amount of knowledge, and you have an incredible amount of experience as an older soul. You can be calm, you can be mature, and you can begin to sit as the observer and just be and learn to just be. And then in just being, we're in the beginning, we're teeter-tottering on, and contemplating through from a higher perspective of what these things are. So experience still happens and we're still looking at it and still learning from it, but from a higher level. Recognition of what is, who we are, starts to become much more clear. Because if you're not the body and you're not your personality, you're not the mind, and naked awareness comes in, and we know directly that this is who we are. All the while, oneness is starting to become more of a part of our life, and seeing the oneness and how we're all connected. So my pitch for the study of essentially the treatise on the seven rays and Alice Bailey books and rays and initiations is, if you don't complete the lessons prior to moving on, you're going to be drawn back in to complete the lessons. You can't go up if you're being drawn down. If there's something you still desire, you can't go up. You have to deal with that desire. And it doesn't matter how long it takes to deal with it. I've had to deal with many desires. I mean, we all know the desires, okay? If you, sometime I'll show you my astrology chart. And for anybody who's familiar with astrology, I have a Scorpio setup that is, both in detriment on one hand and hugely beneficial on the other for the spiritual journey. I have Venus and Scorpio in the 8th house at 18 degrees. Mars in Scorpio, Uranus in Scorpio, my north node's in Scorpio. So I've had to deal with, many, many incredible, intense scenarios that I put myself in, was put in, and whatnot. All beneficial now, all pretty awesome now. Obviously, it doesn't matter afterwards once you start, recognizing what we're talking about here. Then we know all of those things were very beneficial, but the ageless wisdom has allowed me and many others to complete the lessons without having to go back, because you then understand the human condition inside of yourself and what you were. And then because you understand you and your makeup, you may not understand everyone else, but you do in a way you can relate completely, because you know yourself, you know everyone else, not in the depth kind of way where I don't know everybody's makeup their race structure or their soul or their evolutionary growth or where they're at on the ladder. I don't know a lot of those things. Now, I'll tell you straight and very clear, though. I'll give a secret. People reveal themselves the instant we start talking. You out yourself instantly. The minute, if you're talking to an advanced person or an advanced being, they know instantly. You don't know how they know. They know because the words that you say indicate exactly where you are at that moment on the chart. Instantaneously, we out ourselves. That's a hard lesson. It takes a little bit to get through. And then you get practice by talking to people and reflecting as an observer and bouncing off what you now know with your interactions, right? So that's where this goes. You learn all these lessons and you have wisdom, and the awareness that you share at that point is a higher awareness. You're sharing yourself. You're sharing whatever level of evolution that you've managed to attain, which, if you're talking from higher levels, well, that could be very beneficial now. I think about Ram Dass discussing being loving awareness. And it's so funny because at some point along the journey, you realize that you also are the loving awareness. Because for a while, we don't realize what the heck he was talking about. You don't realize what many of the saints and sages have been talking about. You've heard it, and that's great. And then later, you know that they weren't lying and that what they said was true in ways that you simply couldn't see at the time, but now you can. This is about awareness. This is about more and more consciousness, I guess, first, and then, naked awareness. The whole be still, be quiet, be still, all that. It's more important than it's more important to our own growth than anybody can imagine. Now, again, so what do you do? I'm not going to run or I'm not worried about anybody else's growth. You're going to get there. It's not a problem. It's no problem, mister. It's no problem. You will inevitably understand at some point. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I think that's a good Sunday message. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Let's just keep pushing the curtains aside. See you soon.